Hi, everybody. Welcome to the BBQ Talks Show. My name is Ryan.
My name is Pickles,
Hey.
aka Charlie. Welcome to the show.
And I'm
Right, so
James.
tonight, I was going to say, we're just about to say we're going to be talking to James from JL Butchers about his fantastic butchers. First off, before we get that, we've got a little bit of a sad note. Charlie's going to fill you in on how you can help out and all that good stuff. So if you can roll that, Charlie, and that'd be cool.
Sure. Just briefly, we found out Lee from Smoking_Bears_. He's got a great channel. He does a lot of cooks with his family as well, with his kids especially. He's got the older cub is away at school. The younger cubs cook with him quite a bit, and so he found out he had melanoma on Friday. And so he's off work, and he's going to be going through some medical expenses. Mr. Cast Iron also has a YouTube channel as well. You can go check him out, check both of them out. But Mr. Cast Iron, that's Mike, set up a GoFundMe link for him, and hopefully we can find that link and put it for you down below in the comments as well as the description. So please do support them, and they're a fantastic family. He's got an amazing wife and kids. So,
yeah, very, very well said, Charlie. I think anyone in the barbecue community needs any support. We generally all hustle around and sort of like lend a hand and try and get out as much positive thought and sort of help as we can. So hopefully all you guys listening can help out and do whatever you can in any sort of way. The help would be much appreciated. So please do. Steve, I can see you in the chat. If you can share the link into the chat, that would be fantastic so that people can see. That'd be really cool if you could do that, mate. So moving on from that sad news, it's also Matt's birthday. It was Matt's birthday yesterday, so happy birthday, Matt.
Happy birthday, Matt.
Yeah. Yeah, cheers, dude. He's stepped back from the show a little bit. He's doing more production and website sort of stuff for the moment. So unfortunately, you got my mug and the good Charlie as well sitting down there. He's helping out. He's a presenter. Plus Tom will be as well. Once we got to try and get Tom's internet working so we can get him back up and running. So first, we'll take a little forward about our show supporters, the Rusty Barbecue Company. They bring you an exclusive 10% discount on all of their products. Meta provide 15% worldwide discount on all of their products too. And we also have Globe Baltic, who is we've teamed up with to bring you 10% off their quality birch charcoal. So please do go rate and review our podcast and leave a comment to help us grow the show. The discount codes will be available in the show notes, so check them out and save yourself a little bit of money. Go buy yourself Meta or some good charcoal or some quality rubs. Also, Uncle Steve, I can give you an update on that. Uncle Steve's sending me some products over. At the moment, they've headed over to Australia, which we found out through some tracking, which was really weird. They come to Heathrow and then went to Australia for some reason, which was kind of cool. They're better travelled than I am. So when they rock up, that'd be really cool too. So now we're going to get on with the show. This week, our guest is James. He's here to talk about butchery, basically different cuts you can get from the UK and the USA and how you can compare them, plus lots of other little bits and bobs along the way. So welcome along to the show, James. Thanks for coming along.
That's right. Thanks for having me.
Where are you from and how long have you been cooking over sort of like fire and flames and stuff like that?
So I'm in Woking in Surrey, southeast England. Woking, born and bred. My parents bought the house about 5 minutes around the corner from where I currently live. So I didn't fly very far from the nest. I've been cooking I was a chef for 15 years before I got into the butchery. I think I first started working in a pub when I was about 15 years old as a pot wash. So always been into food, and kind of like most people started off barbecuing on like self-lighting bags with Richmond sausages and bird's eye burgers and all the like traditional rubbish English barbecue stuff. And then just the more I got into cooking and like more I progressed as a chef, it sort of just followed in with the barbecue side of things. Met a few people in the barbecue community online mainly. Started watching YouTube videos, and then kind of just built from there really. I don't really remember a point specifically where I realised that I'd upped my barbecue game from that sort of time when I was starting off. It kind of just evolved. And then obviously when I got into the butchery, it then took another big step as well, because obviously having the availability of the meat makes it so much easier to be able to experiment and play with things, and then properly getting into like briskets and pork butts and whatnot. And then and then the barbecue collection ended up just growing and growing and growing, and I've got barbecues scattered all over the place. Mum and Dad had to build a new shed in their back garden to house some of my barbecue equipment. I've got barbecues at the mother-in-law's, barbecues here, barbecues at the shop. Pretty much a barbecue that travels around in the back of the van with me the whole time, because you never know when you might need one.
Wow. That's I thought I had a few, but I didn't have to purpose-build buildings and stash them around people's houses.
Yeah, well, I've only got a little garden, and it got to about 3 or 4 in my back garden before my lovely wife said, "Right, that's enough in this garden. We've only got a small garden as it is." So so they had to start finding new homes.
You're lucky she specified in this garden. You know, my missus was like, "That's it."
Yeah.
Yeah, so we talked about butchery for a little bit earlier. I think it's really cool, and it's a dying art. Like, what are your thoughts about kind of butchery and where it's headed and kind of where it has been?
Yeah, I mean, so obviously in its heyday over here, pretty much everybody used the butchers. There wasn't really much meat bought in supermarkets and stuff. Everybody used the butcher, the greengrocer, and then obviously with the introduction of supermarkets, that sort of all faded away, and the butchers on the high street were closing really, really rapidly. We lost so many shops. But I think in the last few years, I think we've seen a bit of a resurgence over here, actually, to be honest. And especially during COVID, during lockdown, I know myself and a lot of other local butchers really sort of stepped up and supported the local communities. I mean, so on the first day of lockdown, my little boy was born, my little Ellis was born. So I closed my shop to the public completely, and only went online. So everyone had to order online, and I did local deliveries. We were flat out 30, 35, 40 deliveries a day. And then we started introducing new product lines as well. So we started getting pasta, rice, flours, like cupboard goods, because people were really struggling to get anything really. The supermarkets were empty, or you couldn't get in them. And so, the local community was struggling really to get anything, not just meat. And I think since then, I think that introduced the butcher to a whole new customer base. People that were used to shop at the supermarket and didn't really appreciate quite how big a difference the quality is from buying from your butcher to buying in the supermarket. And so post-COVID, we've managed to keep hold of quite a few of the customers that we gained during COVID. Obviously, there's going to be a group of people that will just go straight back to the supermarkets. But I think we've managed to retain quite a few that we supported during COVID. So, and hopefully people now, I mean, especially like we've got like Extinction Rebellion and Animal Rebellion are talking about how we all need to be vegan to save the planet. Obviously, I don't agree with that, being a butcher. And I think actually there's quite a lot of science behind if we just adapt the way we farm, we can actually reverse the effects of global warming. So in the old days, they used to do what was called herd farming. So all cattle would be bunched together in a tight spot and be moved from pasture to pasture. And what happens there is it gives the grasses a chance to recover properly, and the grasses can store carbon in the roots, and we can actually end up reversing the effects of global warming if we just change the way we farm rather than massive industrial farming. We can continue to eat meat, good quality meat, and just change the way it's farmed, basically.
Oh wow, that's super cool. I
Okay.
didn't really know anything about that. That's quite an eye opener. That's a really good thing, you know. If you can move your cows around and keep your brisket on your plate, it can't be a bad thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
There's a fantastic TED talk. I can't remember the guy who it is now. I'll look it up and I'll send a link to you, and then you can share it or something. But it's a really, really fascinating TED talk, and he explains it a lot better than what I can about how we can change things, basically, just by the way we move the animals around.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Like another kind of quick question on being a butcher. I know, like, you're talking like supermarket butchers, which basically is butcher in quotation marks. Like, they're useless essentially most of the time. Did you have training? And I also noticed you have you actually had classes, or I don't know if you've given any, but you had training classes on your website.
Yeah,
so a brilliant idea.
So myself, I haven't done any like formal training as a butcher. Obviously, I worked in kitchens for like 15 years, so I've been around meat. I'm used to working with meat, but most of the time, like in the kitchens, obviously you get stuff brought in that's already pre-prepared. So I learned on the job with an old boy that was in the shop when I bought it, and I kept him on. And so, yeah, I picked up quite a lot from him, and also learnt a lot through YouTube, to be honest, as well. Scott Rear has some amazing videos on YouTube. And so I'd sit every night and just troll through butchery videos and then go back to the shop the next day and try it out. And like, sometimes you get it right, sometimes you get it wrong. But the great thing about butchery is, for the most part, the anatomy is the same on all animals. So if you can butcher a pig, then you can butcher a lamb, and you can butcher a side of beef. It's just on a slightly different scale. Some cuts obviously are different, but on the whole, the anatomy of the animals is the same. And it sounds a weird thing to say, but the animals almost show you where they want to be cut, because we do a lot of what we call seam butchery. So if you're cutting through like muscle, you're probably not cutting in the right place. There is some cuts that are exemption to that, but most of the time you're cutting through fat seams or sinew, or the muscles will just naturally separate themselves. You start it off, and then you can almost like pull bits away. And for the most part, you're just using the tip of your knife just to work through seams, basically, and start separating muscles.
Yeah, and as far as your class goes, how did that go? If you ever given the current situation.
So for a number of years, people had been saying to me, "You've got to do a butchery course. You've got to do a butchery course."
Yeah, I agree.
And I had this. I don't know. I had like this mental block, or a fear, or I'm not sure what it was. Of I don't know. I guess it's putting yourself open to people to critique what you're doing in a way as well as teaching them. They're going to be looking at what you're doing. So it took me quite a while to actually build up the confidence to say, right, okay, I'm ready now. I'm happy to have people in and explain it to them. And then COVID hit. So I booked a load of people in. I got two of my best mates in, and we did a run through one night. And everything went great. They were like, yeah, it's really good. We changed a little bit up. And I was like, right, I'm ready for the first two people to come in. And then, of course, everything shut down. So I've got about 8 people that are chomping at the bit to come into the shop. And we should be, hopefully, I'll be running some in September to try and catch up with the people that have been booked on for the last sort of like 18 months. They've been waiting now. And then, then I can look to open it back up again and start booking some more people in. So
that'd be fantastic. I think it's a brilliant idea.
So we'll just start off with doing a side of pork, because I think it's quite a nice, easy one to do. It takes about an hour and a half, talking through all the cuts and breaking it down. And then, at the end of it, they get to take away a few of the joints that they've prepared. And
what a super cool idea that is.
I think I'm supposed to be doing one on John Gower's farm next year as well, which is like a butchery to barbecue course I'm going to be doing. So breaking down specifically the cuts that we're going to want to use for barbecue, and then going on to teaching a little bit about how to cook them and stuff as well. So.
Oh, closer to the time, and I forget you and John on and have a chat about that. That'd be a really cool thing to do next year. That'd be quite good. So circling back to you mentioned you was a chef. So how did you go from being a chef to being a butcher? How did you make the jump?
Yeah, so it was very, very weird. So I woke up one morning and decided I wanted to be a pig farmer. So
as one does.
So there's no farming in my family. Like, my family were painters and decorators and carpenters, and like I was the first one that got into like hospitality. And then I decided I wanted to do pig farming. So I found this farm down the road from me, Wildcroft Rare Breeds, and they specialised in rare breed pork. Graham and Tracy. So I made contact and said, listen, can I just come down in the evenings when I finish in the kitchens and just help, like, muck out the pigs, do whatever. I just want to be around and see what it's all about. They were great, so they let me come down and make a nuisance of myself. And then after a little while, Graham said to me, well, there's a little bit of land over there that we're not using. Why don't you get your own pigs and you can run them on there? I said, oh, that's a great idea. I'd love that. So I thought, well, before I go out and buy pigs, let me see whether there's somebody going to buy them at the other end of the chain. So I went into a butchery in Purford around the corner, and he wasn't interested. And my mum and dad had been using this butcher's in West Byfleet for a bit, and they kind of stopped using it because it wasn't particularly nice. So I went in and I said to the old boy, the shop was called Pete the Meat. My parents used to call him Pete the Cheap because whatever you asked for, he'd just give you whatever he had in the counter. It was never particularly what you asked for. So I went in here and I said to him, would you be interested in buying some rare breed pork? And he said no, because he was selling the shop. And there was just really like awkward silence. And, oh, okay. And so literally to make conversation, because it was really awkward and nothing more than that, I asked him how much he was selling it for. And he told me this figure, and I thought, oh, hang on a minute, that sounds quite cheap for a ready-made business. And I was kind of getting a little bit fed up in the kitchens, but I hadn't really considered becoming a butcher. So I spoke to my dad, and like we looked into it a little bit more. And to be honest, the reputation in the village was shot. He was, I mean, to be fair to Pete, he took over the shop during the recession. He'd worked in there since the 70s. He had worked his guts out. His legs had pretty much given up on him, and it just wasn't the right time for him to have the shop, I don't think. So he was struggling. Anyway, to cut a long story short, I ended up offering him a sum of money, fortunately for me, a very, very small sum of money. But I said that he could keep his job, because in my head, I had just invested in a business and I was going to retire at like 28 years old, and everything was going to be hunky-dory, and I was going to ride off and spend my life in somewhere. But that didn't quite work out, and it turned out it needed a lot more work, a lot more investment, and a lot more time. So initially I was working part-time and Pete was working part-time. I was still chefing. And then I made the jump to full-time, and Pete was there as well. And then eventually it became clear that it needed just me in there really to push it forward, which I did. But yeah, a lot of hard work, a lot of struggles financially and like mentally and everything else. But I think in 2018 I got runner-up Surrey Butcher of the Year. up against some big shops of like, I mean, I'm a one-man band and these other guys are like 4 or 5 butchers working in there. And then 2019, I won Surrey Butcher of the Year. So that was, for me, a huge achievement that we had got to that point. And yes, and so that's how it all came about, from waking up wanting to be a pig farmer to ending up buying a butcher's. And I never got my pigs.
I was going to ask. That's a Cinderella tale I have not heard before.
Yeah, yeah.
So you do not have the multi-million-dollar pig farm currently.
I absolutely do not have multi-million-dollars. No, I wish I did. But,
alas.
Who knows? This time next year.
Yeah, absolutely. You know it. Oh man, so that's a really interesting story, and how you got into butchery. I think that's fantastic.
It's not how most normal people get into it, I don't think.
No. So how did you get into butchery? Well, there was this pig farm.
Yeah.
You
sort of loop it around.
Yeah,
it's fantastic.
I somehow get the feeling like most butchers are not exactly normal.
No. Yeah,
it's the same thing as like the restaurant industry. Most people in the restaurant industry are not normal.
No, I think you've got to have a couple of screws loose to get into it. But
yeah, exactly.
So we got a question pop in for the chat. It says, "What's your favourite rub or spice for brisket?"
For me, I think obviously, I mean, it's got to be anything made by Rusty, surely. Or failing that, anything made by the Brew and Brisket from Norfolk Smoke Pit is actually a cracking rub. I really like that. But yeah, I mean, all of Rusty's rubs. Like we did the Smoke and Fire at the weekend, and I used cattle dust and I forget the name of it. It's black coffee one. Yeah, we used that on the steak at the weekend, and that would work fantastic on brisket as well. But I mean, at its basic, salt, pepper, and garlic powder. For me, normally when I cook a brisket at home, is salt, pepper, and garlic powder is pretty much all I go for. If I'm doing events, then I'll put a slightly heavier rub on it. But my personal taste, salt, pepper, and garlic.
Okay, yeah, that's fair enough. I'm pretty much the same as you, to be honest. I like to keep it quite simple, but the cattle dust is exceptionally good, and I did mix that up with some Uncle Steve Shape the other day on some short ribs, and they were amazing because obviously the cattle dust is quite it's quite textured, isn't it? It's got so sort of like it was like the traditional Texas sort of base on the bottom with the herbiness of and the crust on the top. It made a really tasty bark. So
I layered a really good thing. I layered cattle dust and Black Angus. That's the one I was trying to think of. So we were given a tomahawk for Smoke and Fire Festival, and so I cattle dust first because I love the flavor profile of that, and then the Black Angus because I love the contrast of the black color with the bright red meat. If you cook it right.
Yeah, that's like a real good deal.
So are you guys talking more like the cattle dust is kind of a more peppery rub?
It's quite herby actually.
Is it? Yeah, because I find I love the as you say herby, but what do I say? Now I'm thinking what I say.
You say herby, we say herby.
Herby. I don't know. No, but I'm thinking a lot of times for beef, essentially is pepper heavy.
Yeah.
Especially if you're looking at kind of a Texas combination. It's mostly like, in theory, it's supposed to be pepper and salt, but that's just kind of like the theoretically authentic way to do things.
Yeah.
It's the Texas way, isn't it? People have been cooking beef everywhere for ages, but you could say, you associate the brisket with the salt, pepper, and all that sort of stuff.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I can ask my typical question that I ask anyone who's from another country. So what do you find are the what defines, if anything, British barbecue versus what's the flavor profile? Are there any differences, or is it basically similar to an American barbecue, like Texas style, something like that, or North Carolina style for pork, or because I mean, once you get into barbecue, you can talk like Asian barbecue, African barbecue, a whole bunch of different things. But is there anything that to you defines kind of like British barbecue?
I don't think that we have a particular barbecue identity at the moment. I think we're slowly getting into barbecue. Like Sainsbury's recently have introduced point end brisket and some ribs, like through Marcus has been like helping with that, which is great. But I mean, from what I see in the shop, it's still, when the sun comes out, it's still kebabs, burgers, and sausages. That's pretty much what I'll sell all day, every day during the summer. Anything that's got a nice shiny glaze on it, whether it's Chinese, Mexican, whatever, any sort of nice bright glaze on a chicken kebab or a beef kebab is still currently what we'll just sell like all day long on a hot weekend. Obviously for me, because I'm into barbecue, I have another little customer base that will come in and they'll be buying the ribs and the picanha, tri-tips, briskets, whatever. And it is growing, and I think the more butchers that get on board with it as well. I mean, obviously it's not as good for me the more butchers that get on board, because it waters down my customer base. But like as a nation to change the way we barbecue, I think we're getting there. I think it's going to take a little while to sort of catch up with everybody else. But I mean, there's been a couple of celebrity chefs that have brought out books this year as well. Tom Kerridge just brought out a barbecue book, which is actually really good book. There's some really nice ideas in there. So yeah, the more celebrity chefs that get on board as well, I think it will help push it a little bit here. But whether we'll end up having our own identity or whether we'll just end up doing American style barbecue or Korean barbecue, I'm not sure, but it'll be interesting to see where it goes in the next few years.
From a not that I should really be answering the question, but what I've noticed from having different guests on over the time we've been doing is it definitely seems to be leaning towards the more live fire cooking now, if that makes sense. So I wouldn't necessarily say you're like the smoking meat's ever going to go away, but everything seems to be going more sort of like cad eyes or hanging meat over fire and big sort of that sort of setup seems to be a little bit more trendy now than it certainly has ever been.
Yeah,
probably since the Middle Ages.
So, I mean,
a
lot of people like I think that's a lot of people in like Argentinian barbecue kind of do that style, as well as like a couple other places around, like a couple of like 1,000 places around the world do it. But that does seem to be making a tick back.
Yeah, I think at Smoke and Fires, it's Savage Barbecue that make the cages. They had an incredible setup down there, and it was probably one of the busiest stalls in the whole festival, mainly because they were cooking some incredible meat, and there was a few like Instagram like people around and that as well. But I mean, their gear, Savage Barbecue stuff is amazing. I wish I had the space for one of them, but I would probably get a divorce if one of them turned up in the garden.
Look what I got! Surprise!
But they are awesome, and it's a great way to cook. There's something quite sort of caveman about hanging a piece of meat over a fire and just watching it slowly cook.
Yeah, I agree. I think they are as I said, things are definitely changing in the UK, and from my perspective I can sort of see it because I'm looking at everything rather than just focused on one particular type of thing people are doing, because obviously it's in my interest to have a bigger picture of what's happening than sort of like be micro focused on anyone's particular thing. But I think the live fire thing, and as you say, that those cages are something else, and people are sort of like bunging up. Just sort of, I've seen a lot of people just making fire pits and cooking over those directly, and all of that sort of stuff. So you know, you don't necessarily have to have a great big rig to do that type of cooking. It can be really basic. Like if you look at the sort of stuff Christian Stevenson sets up, it's just sort of like a great big pit sometimes, you know.
Yeah.
So it's sort of like knock up a couple of bits of wood and hang half a cow for me, you know, and off he goes.
They did some amazing stuff at Taste of London a few weeks ago. He works with a butcher that's local to me, Simon from Surrey Hills Butchers, and some of the stuff that him and Christian do together is amazing. I love to watch them work together. Obviously, Christian's crazy, and but Simon is a great butcher, and together they make a wicked team. And their live fire cooking is brilliant. It's great to watch.
I mean, the fascinating thing about to me is like if you look at like Britain, you've got a bunch of colonialism in your history, and so you have a whole bunch of like importing spices, different kinds of food. You got Indian, you got Asian, you got African, you name it. So it's basically an entire country, whereas it's expanded more. But say barbecue had started out in New York City with that mix of different people. At this point, you would have and maybe you do, and I'm sure you probably do, you'd have like a bunch of different flavors coming out as opposed to starting in Kansas City, Texas. And I mean, don't get me wrong, like, I can go back in the history of barbecue and it's like, you know, there's a whole bunch of different different things, but it's just kind of fascinating the way other countries have taken kind of like the traditional American barbecue, whatever you want to call that, and kind of started to adopt that. And I'm just trying to figure out where the new flavors are coming in.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure which way it's going to go, to be honest. It's tricky. I mean, there is, like I said before, I mean, there is people that are experimenting now, and I guess one thing that's taken off quite a bit this year is things like butterfly legs of lamb, and we've done quite a lot of them that people are cooking on the grills, and people are trying like bigger cuts, but it's to be interesting to see, I think, over the next couple of years, sort of in which direction we go as a country or as a nation with barbecue, and influences from all over, I suppose.
I suppose you could sort of like, again, sort of looping back to the COVID thing. If you think a lot of people have brought a lot of barbecues, and I should imagine the vast majority of those in this country certainly would probably be, for your average Joe Public, would be a Weber or perhaps a Traeger or something along those lines. And then all of the recipe books that go along with those, they're generally roasting meat. So that would sort of like maybe explain your butterflied leg of lamb. So open it up, stuff it with something, and close it back up, or leave it open and cook it a little bit quicker or whatever. So I should imagine that sort of like how that is trending through your butcher shops, because everybody's gone out and brought those particular brands with those sort of type of recipes written by like the Weber or the Traeger chefs of the time who wrote the books. So I should imagine that's how that would probably.
You do see trends, and things like Good Food Magazine, like if they've got some barbecue recipes in there, then you'll see like a trend for a few weeks of like people trying it out. And so it goes up and down, like different cuts, but unfortunately still ultimately at the moment it comes down to burgers and sausages and kebabs still, but like
still good.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, Marcus brought out a book basically on kebabs or skewers, and that's great because you haven't just got to stick cubes of chicken on a stick. Like you can really go to town with like what you put on a skewer, and that book that Marcus put out is amazing. Some of the things that he put in there, you just wouldn't even think about like doing, and like it cost me a fortune because I then had to go out and buy a whole new set of different shaped skewers and prongs and different things just so I could replicate what Marcus was doing.
That was a real, we had him on for that interview, did you interview Marcus for that with me, Charlie? I know you've interviewed him once with me before.
I did, yeah. Marcus is a fantastic character. I really liked him a lot.
We spent a very interesting evening with him at Smoke and Fire Festival, actually. Yeah, it was.
I bet you did.
We had,
You broke out the whiskey.
we had a great night, and I was honoured actually that because I mean obviously being there's hundreds of people that would want to spend their time with him, and I was very fortunate that he chose to spend his evening with myself and Simon, who was on the team with me. He runs Lunch and Munchin, his like his event catering side of things, and so we spent the night with Marcus Saturday night,
nice.
and that was great. And he actually introduced me to probably one of the nicest snacks ever now. So I had this bag of pork cracklings, and he said, right, get it, and he chucked it in a tray. He covered it in like any sort of generic barbecue rub, and then drizzled maple syrup all over it, and then tossed them all together. And oh my days, that was like pork crackling with barbecue dust and maple syrup is just amazing. We ended up eating about 4 bags worth.
Oh wow! I could just imagine him go, "Oh, you got to try this, guys! Pull it out, bits and bobs, just bang it all in."
It was amazing,
fantastic. So that's really cool. So we sort of cut back into the main sort of interview now. I was going to say, cut wise in the UK, if you were going to stumble into a butcher and you've just seen an amazing YouTube video and you want to start cooking American barbecue, so how would you explain to a butcher what you'd want to, or how would you say to a butcher what you would want to buy in a general butcher's language? Because obviously you're a speciality butcher of types. Obviously you do a lot of the barbecue cuts, but if you were just to go into the high street and say, "Oh, I'd like a pork butt, or I'd like a brisket, or I'd like a point end, or I'd like flank steak," or I
mean, it is tricky, because some of the we'll start off with pork butt. Pork butt is an easy one, because you've only got to ask for a neck end of pork. It's basically the same cut. So you go in, you ask for a neck end of pork, and then you say to them, "Can you take the outer bones off and the skin off?" And then you've got a pork butt.
Right.
So that's the easiest one to ask for. If you go and ask for a pork butt, most butchers will look at you like you're weird. But if you go and ask for a neck end of pork, ask them to take the bones off and the skin off, and then that is your pork butt. So that one's fine. That one's fairly easy to achieve. Brisket is slightly harder. For one, you need to find a butcher that's going to do whole carcass butchery and not just be buying in briskets. And then so you want to make sure you're asking for the fattier end of the brisket. And the trouble is most butchers most English butchers, when it comes in, they'll sheep bone it out, they'll trim quite a lot of the fat down, and then they'll roll it and tie it up so you've got a nice pot roasting joint, which is fine. You can smoke them and you can get some great results from that as well. But if you can catch a butcher that does whole carcass butchery, and before he's like trimmed it all completely and rolled it, then you can show him like the point end part of it, and try and nab one of them. Ribs are a little bit trickier because obviously they're coming from the pork belly, and most of the time a skilled butcher will take the bones off as close to the bone as they possibly can, because you want as much meat left on the belly and not on the bones. And then, so if you go in and you ask for the ribs, you'll get like a sheep boned set of ribs which haven't got any meat on them. Which is a sign of a good butcher, but not great for when you want to barbecue.
Not exactly good barbecue.
So you need to either be prepared to buy, say, like the whole belly, and then learn to take the ribs off with a bit more meat yourself, or ask the butcher to do that. But you'll probably end up having to buy some of the belly or something as well, because it's going to compromise the belly cut, or the loin if you're coming into there as well. So ribs are a little bit trickier. Short ribs now most butchers will sell. Short ribs is a bit of a traditional English cut anyway, except they would just be like pot roasted or slow roasted rather than smoked. Most butchers will know the term of Jacob's ladder as well, where the short ribs are all still connected together. But again, you're probably going to have to try and find a whole carcass butcher that you can get in before the whole thing's been broken down, so you can nab one of them. What else have we got? But yeah, I mean, hopefully, like especially over the summer, most butchers will have in baby back ribs and spare ribs.
Yeah.
And obviously, with a spare rib, you can then break that down into a St. Louis rib. So the easiest way to do that, if you pick up a whole spare rib, it's a massive lump, and it's got like a curved edge across the top, comes down to a couple of points. So you just find the longest bone, which is somewhere around the middle, slightly off to one side a little bit. So you pick the longest bone, and then just you go parallel to the other cut from the longest bone across the bottom, just cut parallel to that. So you've got a nice clean strip, and then you usually like just nip off the last sort of one or two bones. So you've got that really nice St. Louis shape to your ribs. And then you can chuck the trimmings on the smoker, and that's what you can nibble while you're still waiting for the rest of the meat to finish. But
yeah, I mean, I think spares are the way to go.
Yeah,
I love them for that matter. So you can cut up, so you have riblets and rib tips, whatever you want to call them.
Yeah,
and you got the sternum bone, like essentially attached to the whole thing.
Yeah,
slice all that stuff off. You can barbecue for a little while, and then throw in your baked beans. Give them good flavor, and then you got your St. Louis cut out of there. And for whatever reason, spares are generally a lot cheaper than St. Louis cut, because I guess because you got the butcher going on doing his work.
Yeah, and I mean, ultimately, you're paying. Like, if someone was to come in and ask me to trim a spare rib St. Louis cut, most of the time I'll offer them like all the trimmings. But even if they don't want the trimmings, you're still charging for that whole spare rib, because there's not a lot then that we can do with that trim. So we have to like make the money somehow from it. So you're paying for that whole spare rib, but you're not getting those. If you don't take the trimmings with you, and you're just taking your St. Louis cut, then you're basically doing yourself out a little bit. So
right, for sure. To follow that trend. You're muted, and you just dropped our guest. What just happened here?
I don't know. I didn't touch anything. I was pouring a beer. It just dropped out. He should come back in again, hopefully. Maybe his connection dropped out or something. He was out on the phone, wasn't he? So that should be. Hopefully, he'll be back. I'll message him up, and we're just getting into the nuts and bolts of it as well. It was really cool, man.
Yeah, I really like the guy. Super nice, super cool, knows his stuff. And I love talking to butchers who know what they're doing. It's quite an experience, because there's a lot who don't know what they're doing. And I got to figure, I'll probably ask him this question if he comes back. Really, there's not that many cuts on particular types of, whether you're looking at like a cow, or you're looking at a pig, or you're looking at, this, that, and the next thing. The names are different for sure.
Yeah.
And I was surprised. One of the things he mentioned, I'll ask him about it again, is tri-tip, which is actually hard to find around here as well. For a lot of people in the U.S., I can find it easily, but for a lot of other people in the U.S., it's tough to find.
Yeah, so they say. It's supposed to be more of a Californian cut, isn't it? So, sort of like on the West Coast cut, as I understand it in America.
Right.
It's sort of like you don't really see it in the middle.
I mean, it originally started out as a West Coast cut, and it's but it's spread across as people found out more about tri-tip and how good it is, and still a lot of people have a real tough time getting it. Picanha as well, which has become popular. So those things are boosting popularity, and Brazilian steakhouses sell picanha. It's really good stuff.
Yeah, tasty. I've had that eating
Yeah.
out. I've never cooked it, but it's excuse me, really good, tasty stuff. I can't believe that. I hope his battery hasn't run out. That'd be such a shame.
That's a good guess. So you go to a butcher, correct?
Yeah, I've got a couple of local butchers to me. He's just message 2 minutes and I'll be back, so that's fine.
All right.
Give him a phone.
Do you end up getting more of your stuff? I mean, I know Europe is kind of a lot of places, depending on where you live, can be you got your butcher, your baker, and all that kind of stuff. Versus going to the supermarket.
Well,
versus I'll say versus the U.S., right? Where going to the supermarket has basically been the past 70 years, 80 years, something like that. So butchers suffered and bakers suffered pretty extraordinarily.
So if I want a really nice piece of meat or a special sort of more specialist cut, I've got a couple of butchers near me. One's called Sira M, which is just the next village up. They're really good guys. They're really, really helpful. They've got a dry age cabinet there. They've got some really good stuff going on. And then there's another butcher's just down the road from me in Wendover. That's called King's Farm Shop, and I brought stuff from there as well. In fact, the last video I done, I got the short ribs from there, so they're really good as well. So it all depends what kind of stuff you want. I literally I went to the supermarket today, and they had 2 really nice looking pork butts there. So I thought, I can't leave them on the in the cutting show. So I thought, I'm taking them home with me. They're going in the smoker tomorrow. So if to me, if you want a special type of cut of meat, butcher, 100%, because you're guaranteed the quality and you're guaranteed the guys know what you're talking about. Whereas if you want just something general to chuck on, it's cheap and cheerful. You get what you pay for at the end of the day.
Yeah. Hey, welcome back, James. We just asked and answered all your questions. So we came up with our own answer.
Yeah. Sorry about
that. Probably about like 25%, right? Give or take. No, I was saying one of the things you had mentioned was a tri-tip, which like even in the U.S. is kind of like it's popular on the West Coast, and now it's kind of like starting to popularize around. Same thing as picanha and some other cuts. But it surprises me that butchers don't know that cut and don't know like where it is. So I'm kind of figuring, most butchers should kind of know, what cuts are what.
Yeah, I mean, tri-tip's a very unusual one that not many butchers, I don't think, over here will have it. Not have it. Will be cutting it, and it just kind of like hangs off the end of the rump a little bit. But yeah, that's a cut that's not really taken off over here much yet. Picanha has now a little bit more. You see picanha a little bit more around, and you get people coming asking for it. But yeah, tri-tip's still quite sort of out there really at the moment.
Yeah, it's the same here. I mean, you get people desperate in the YouTube community for tri-tip, and they can't find it at all unless they special order it.
Yeah.
But I kind of figure, most butchers should know. And gorgeous cut, and I absolutely love it. But getting back to like kind of the names of different cuts and the names of different things. Like even in the States, we've got depends on which region you are in the U.S. as to what that cut's called. So you might have a Delmonico steak or your Denver steak or something else that's called something completely different in a different region. And so it's really hard to for your average consumer to read the label and try to figure out, is this the cut I'm looking for or not?
Yeah, I'm not even sure. I'm not sure we have a name for tri-tip over here, to be honest. Most of the time, it just gets cut into the rump.
You can call it the bottom sirloin primal, which is what it is. Not the most attractive name of all time, but yeah. So I mean, so names, and then specifically names between there and here would be completely different.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we just get. I see. All right. So let's rattle through some questions. I think we're starting to go a little bit long. Plus, as well, we've got to be up early in the morning, and also it's looking like your connection's going a little bit. So, can you still hear us? Okay, and everything changed. Hello.
Okay. I don't. Is my connection playing up a little bit now since I've come back on?
Sounds fine to me.
It's okay.
I'm going to move it tight because I'm not sure whether I keep losing you or not. I just got a washing out. Hey, is that any better?
Yeah, clear as.
Yeah.
It's okay. So let's rattle through these a little bit. So as I was going to mention earlier on, we've sort of touched on the bigger cuts. I'd like to go back into that maybe another time, but so cut wise in the UK,
Yeah.
If you sit back and look at the steaks, obviously ribeyes crept over slowly, and that's quite a common cut now, I'd say. But do you see many people taking up cuts like Charlie mentioned, a Denver cut, feather blade, flat irons, another one. They were sort of like quite new a few years ago, and I've gradually seen them roll out, become more available. So what steaks, etc., like the ones butchers know about and not everybody else know about? What ones are coming up? What one's going to be popular, do you think?
So I'm starting to sell quite a lot of Denver now, to be honest. I started cutting Denvers a little while ago. Beautiful piece of meat. And normally, so it's a muscle that sits across the top of the chuck that you have to seam out. Normally, it would just be sliced straight through part of the chuck, and it would just be used for braising or like slow cooking or God forbid, even go through the mincer. But yeah, you take the time to seam that muscle out, and it's really nice. Yeah, I've started selling a few of them. Flat irons are pretty popular now, to be honest. We sell quite a lot of that. And bavette is also another one which, we're starting to see a lot more people asking for that, which again is a really nice piece of meat. Lovely texture on that.
Yeah, it's there's a lot of steaks out there that people aren't necessarily aware of, and I think they should be, And yeah, Simon just said in the chat, don't tell everyone because the prices will go up. But I think if only a few people find out about it, maybe the prices won't go up that much. But I think as a service to the barbecue community, people deserve to know about these things.
Well, that's a good question.
There's one.
We losing you?
There's one little steak which you only get two on the whole carcass, and that's a spider steak, and it sits in like the hip joint on the cow, and it's only about the size of your hand, but it's a beautiful piece of meat.
Wow. I know what I'm going to be asking for next time I go to the butchers.
Yeah.
Can you supply them, James? Do you get those? Or?
But the trouble is you only get two per animal. And they're literally just the size of your hand. So they don't tend to hang around. It's not something that you can buy. Like most steaks you can buy in like strip loins or ribs or whatever. But yeah, like you can't really buy in a case of spider steaks. They're sort of, they're pretty rare.
Oh, okay. Wow. That's a mission for me.
Yeah. I was going to ask, so like a lot of the theoretically butcher's secret cuts have been revealed. Like, are there any butcher's secret cuts that are kind of like, that are still like reasonable prices, or amazing cuts that people don't know about?
I think, I mean, to be honest, things like Denver, like if you can find a butcher that will cut you Denver steaks, because you should only really be charged like chuck price for them. Like, so yeah, I mean, you're talking anywhere between sort of like £10-15 a kilo, depending on what, like, obviously breed and stuff and it is. But yeah, something like Denver should be really, really cheap. I mean, when you compare it, so I sell Denver, I think £12.50 a kilo at the moment versus £37.50 a kilo for ribeye. So there's a huge like price difference, and the flavour you get from Denver is like, if you cook it right, it's not an easy one to cook because it is a chuck muscle. You can't really take it anywhere past like medium rare, like rare ideally. Super hot and fast, give it a really good rest, and it's like a beautiful tender piece of meat. But the trouble is that you need to educate people that are buying it as to how to cook it, because if they take it home and they cook it well done, then you're just going to get a tough, chewy, like horrible piece of meat, and then it will give that cut a bad reputation because people, well, that's not a very tender steak. So with these new cuts that we're introducing, you need to back it up with the information of how to cook that cut properly in order to get the best out of it, basically.
And also how to cut it as well, because a lot of those cuts have grains in the meat, don't they? So you've got to cut the right way to get the right texture.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, especially with things like bavette and that, like, I mean, with most meats, ultimately they're at their best when you cut against the grain rather than with it.
True. But I mean, that's the difference between you as a butcher and me as a buyer. So like, as a butcher, you want to sell more of those. As a buyer, I want you to sell less of those, so I get a cheaper price. So, I don't want people to know about that.
Yeah.
Right. So we're gonna touch on your new project now. I saw on your website it all looks very exciting. Can you sort of give us a rundown on what you're going to be up to and how you and when you're going to be up and running, as it were?
Yeah. So I was really fortunate to be asked by Squire's Garden Centre if I would be interested in opening a concession within one of their garden centres. They're building a brand new food hall with like a baker's, greengrocer, deli, and butcher. And I mean, for me, like over here, garden centres are sort of destination places now. People will spend hours in there. Big like restaurants and cafes and food halls. They've moved away from being just a place to go and buy plants. They are sort of they're destination places now where people go and spend hours. Like, and so for me to be invited to go into one of them is great, really great for me. Especially, I mean, the village that I'm in at the moment is going through a redevelopment. So half of my village has been demolished and there's a building site. And we've lost all our banks. We've lost the post office, library, car parking. So yeah, it's a hard village to be in at the moment. Long term, it will be a great village because they're building a retirement village within it. So for me, I've got like a captive audience. So my plan is to try and keep West Byfleet. We're going to use it as a base for doing events from. We'll still offer like a collection service 1 day a week and local delivery service in West Byfleet as well. But ultimately, I'll concentrate the business over at the garden centre in Wokingham. And see what the future holds with that. I mean, if they're redeveloping more garden centres in the future, then hopefully we'll be there to take on another concession and then another concession. And and grow the business through there. And yeah, hopefully in maybe 3 to 4 years, however long the redevelopment takes in West Byfleet, to reopen the shop. It'd be a shame to lose that shop. It's been a butcher's since at least 1910, as far back as I've traced its history. So for it to go, because it would ultimately it'll probably be turned into a cafe or a salon or something. So it'd be a shame. I mean, it'd be a shame for me to lose it, but I think it'd be a shame for the village to lose it as a butcher's as well. But yeah, I mean, the plan is to keep hold of it.
Well, if you keep hold of it, just as an idea, would it be worth, like, if it was viable, obviously, because you'd be running two venues at the same time, but a butchery class or a demonstration sort of area for that type of thing would probably be ideal, because obviously it's the foundation of your business, and then you're obviously spreading out into different areas. Like that.
That's one of the reasons why I want to keep hold of it, so I can continue the butchery courses in that shop. Because the space probably isn't there in the garden centre, whereas it would be to if we kept hold of the shop. So yeah, that is definitely one of the plans for it, is to turn it into a space to do more courses from here.
Also, as well, I think we need to stop and translate what a garden centre is for Charlie, because he did look so confused when he said that.
Yeah. I'm completely, utterly confused.
Right. So how do you explain a garden centre to someone? So we have places in the UK where people go to buy everything you use for a garden. So barbecues, butchers, some have in now. We've certainly got a big place around here that has a nice butcher's in. As you're going into, it's sort of like you can buy everything in a garden centre related to outdoors. So I suppose with you guys in the States, you'll have a big sort of box store where you can go and buy your garden seating, garden lighting, your grass if you want to, flowers, and whatever else you have in a garden. So a garden centre is kind of like that, but you'd also have plants. As I said, some places have bread. It's all sort of outdoorsy. You might have a coffee shop in a couple as well, depending on what particular one you go to. I can see it's all lost a bit in translation.
I have no idea. It sounds like a combination between like a mall, a Walmart, and a Home Depot, and some sort of garden, some sort of bigger plants system. I don't know. Yeah, man.
It's like,
but good luck.
How can I put if I could condense that into a pound, it'd be like a retail plant shop, but it'd be like a big florist with a butcher's. You know what a florist is? You know what a florist is? You go there, buy flowers and plants, and all right. See, this is the difference between the subtle differences between the English and the American language.
Hey man, to each their own. I like plants and I like food, so whatever.
Okay, so let's wind it back into that. This is a mystery part for you, Charlie, at the minute. The mystery chat of the gardens.
It's a massive mystery. Yeah, I'm
right, so you're going to be setting up in this what was the name of the garden centre? Sorry,
Squires
Garden Centre. We don't have those round here, but I should imagine they must be quite a posh old setup if they're having butchers and all that sort of stuff bunged in them, because I know the ones we got round here are pretty posh. So I'm guessing it'd be like a nice sort of food hall with a big butchers in it, all shiny and pretty, because that's what I've experienced though on this side of the parks.
Yeah, there's more and more garden centres around here are putting in food halls now. Which is local greengrocers, local butcher, local deli counter, local bakers, all under like one roof basically. So you've got, it's sort of how people used to shop on the high street, but like under one roof in a garden centre. Basically, you're supporting local business and independent businesses, because each one is its own concession. So I'm not working for Squires. It's still JL Butchers. Instead of renting a shop, I'm renting a space in a garden centre, basically. So you're still supporting, although you're going into Squires, which is a big chain, you're still supporting the small business by going to each concession, basically.
That's that's a good way of putting it. You know, I didn't realise they were all separate businesses, but I suppose they would have to be, wouldn't they, to run in their own right with their own branding. Yeah, that's a really cool thing to do, man. Kudos to you. I'm pretty sure you're gonna kill it in there, because, as you say, garden centres are the place to go nowadays. If you're, you know, they have a massive footfall in the UK. So,
absolutely, yep, that's where the money's at.
For sure, man. You got to follow the old follow the spondoolies, as it was. So with your online butchery, so if like you got your website there and all that sort of good stuff, what would you expect if you were to place an order for, I don't know, a brisket and a box of ribs, etc.? You know what I mean? What would the sort of like time be from placing the order to receiving it and all of that sort of, and how would it come packaged as well? To be honest, because I've never actually bought anything on like meat wise anyway.
Yeah. So obviously everything is in like thermal bags with ice sheets, and then boxed and sent out. What I try and do is I try and collate all my online orders will be sent on a Thursday for Friday delivery, because that's most people tend to want it like ready for the weekend. Obviously, if someone messages and says I need it for Thursday or I need it for Wednesday or whatever, but and we can do that. We can do next day delivery. But what I tend to try and do is the orders will come in through the week, and then Thursday will be my day where I prep and package, and they get collected from the courier Thursday afternoon, and then delivered. Hopefully delivered on Friday, and be ready in time for the weekend.
Okay, so do they go out frozen, or are they fresh, or like, do you know, would it be like a frozen piece of meat that comes out?
No, I mean,
like a fresh piece of meat. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the product, but I'd say 90% of the stuff that I send is fresh.
Yeah, I was just wondering for the post. You know, I didn't know how it goes.
Yeah, but it's in like thermal controlled like silver line bags, like with ice sheets in there, and then that all gets wrapped up and then put inside a box, and then I use miles and miles of fragile tape around the boxes, but the couriers will still do their best to try and smash it to pieces for you. But yeah.
So is that mostly meat you send out, or have you thought about doing like the entire meal with a recipe? I mean, I know that's big here.
Yeah,
like kind of home delivery.
So I touched on it a little bit during lockdown, and we started doing like gourmet burger boxes. So you'd get like the buns, the burger, salad, sauces. So we started doing them mainly just for local delivery during lockdown. We did send a few out with couriers. But yeah, I mean, it's something I'd certainly interested in looking at. The problem I've had so far is that I've been a one-man band. So I would say to people, you kind of, because it's your own business, you have to be a website developer, I have to be a social media marketing, I have to be a butcher, I have to be a courier driver, I have to be a plumber, an electrician, like accountant, like, so there's many hats to wear when you're on your own. But hopefully when I move over to Squires, I'm going to have another butcher coming over with me who's fantastic. I'm not allowed to say who it is at the moment, but yeah, he'll be joining me over there, which will hopefully give me some time to expand the business a bit and work on some of the things that I've wanted to do, just haven't had the time to do. So
very cool.
Would you be sort of like in the future thinking about taking on apprentice butchers and that sort of stuff, and the Saturday boy sort of whole type of thing? I remember as like, I remember when I was a kid, it was sort of like if you could get a job in the butchers, you were doing all right. But it's probably a lot different now with the kids.
Yeah.
The butchers was the place to work.
It's one of those tricky ones, and I've been, to be honest, I've been over the last couple of since the Squires deal's come on the table, really, trying to decide between bringing on like an apprentice and training and bringing them into the industry, or bringing somebody on that can hit the ground running. And at the moment, as much as I'd love to bring somebody on and train and bring them under my wing, I think for where the business is at the moment, I needed somebody that's fully fledged, experienced, that can really get Squires really sort of a destination butchers, really. And then hopefully, I mean, if that leads on to, if we're busy enough and I can bring a third person onto the team, then I'll definitely look at somebody that we can train up and bring on, for sure.
Yeah, I think.
Sorry.
No, you go, Charlie.
Yeah. So I also saw you do a bunch of wood chips and wood chunks on your website.
Yeah.
What are your favorite woods to cook with for specific kinds of meats?
So I think at the moment I'm really liking. So I tend to use cherry for most things because I love the color that you get from cherry. At the moment I'm loving just a couple of chunks of hickory with my beef, and then another fruit wood with like white meats with pork and stuff. So I've got a pork butt on at the moment, which has got cherry and apple wood in.
Yeah, and you sell
the cherry for me gives that.
Yeah, you sell olive wood as well, which I think is fascinating. I've never I've heard about it, and I've heard people smoking and with good results. It seems pretty mild, but I've never smoked with olive. Like, what do you find that works with?
Yeah.
What do you find works with that? And what do you find works with fish for smoking fish?
Yeah. So I think personally, olive wood is better on an open fire rather than an enclosed like smoker. I think it can be quite overpowering. In say like a Weber Smoky Mountain or in a monolith or something. So yeah, I think it works better when you've got a little bit more airflow around it. And last weekend I was given a box of grapevine from Glow Baltic, and that's amazing. Like I can imagine that working really, really nicely with fish. We put it on some chicken thighs that we just chucked on the smoker like Saturday night, I think it was. With a lump of grapevine, and the smell and the flavour that came off of that was really nice. I imagine that working lovely with fish. I had some orange wood in the shop as well at one point. That worked really nicely with some fish as well.
Really? I always imagined orange wood, I don't know, just because it's orange, but would that be prone to sort of splattering a bit? Because I should imagine that must be quite an oily wood just by the fact that it's a citrus tree.
Yeah, I didn't notice anything like that. No, it's quite nice to try it out. And I mean, I tend to not. I'm not. It's weird. I'm not like. I don't like a really heavy smoke on any of my meat, really. I like just to have that nice little wisp of it, but I don't like it when it smacks you in the face of smoke first. Like I like to be able to taste like the meat and what you've done to it rather than just getting knocked out by smoke, basically.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of similar to some people like mesquite, which I think is really strong. So minimal amounts
Really
of
strong,
mesquite, you can mix into things. But some people like it. Some people go full on mesquite, but it is very strong.
Yeah,
I've never had that personally either, but there's a lot of African woods coming over as well, which are supposed to be quite strong. But again, as you say, I think they'd probably lend themselves more to the open fire way of cooking rather than in a smoker.
Yeah.
Because
could well be.
generally, if you're running a pit or like a like a drum or a smoky mountain or an offset, your pit's going to run clean anyway naturally if you've got the airflow right. So you're never going to get a really truly heavy smoke. The meat will only take so much smoke during a cook, and then your smoker's essentially an oven, as we all know. So
Yeah, true.
Yeah, I don't know. I think sometimes the smoke less is more, in my opinion, as well. You don't need to put massive great big lumps of wood on and all of that. Again, that's just my personal opinion. People may have different, but yeah, that's just how I like it. And it sounds like you're the same. And I'm pretty sure Charlie.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree.
So yeah, let's move it on to, you've got a catering, Low and Slow Barbecue. We sort of spoke about that a little bit the other day on the tech check. How's that all going? Is it you're getting things back up and running post-COVID, are you? Or
Yeah, I mean, like, again, it's one of the sides of the business that if I could split myself into two people, I could have so much more work, especially like, post-COVID, that we'd had this massive influx of people wanting to do garden parties. And I mean, I could probably be working every weekend barbecuing in people's back gardens, if I could get away from the shop. But so tomorrow I'll be up probably about 6 o'clock tomorrow morning, and I'll go and open the shop. We've got farmers market on in the village tomorrow as well, so I'll be prepping for that. I'll run the shop during the day, close about 4, pack the van up and head straight to somebody's back garden in Byfleet, just around the corner, for an 8 o'clock service. So they've got brisket, pulled pork, and burgers at that one tomorrow, and a few sides. And then I'll probably wrap up somewhere around about 10:30 tomorrow night, and come back and unload the van. But yeah, the event side of things is popular.
That's a long day.
Yeah, I was going to say, is that a typical day, or
it's going to be quite? I mean, no, I wouldn't say it's typical. I mean, it could be, but obviously, I mean, you need some sort of work-life balance. So I've had to turn down numerous gigs this year, just because it's impossible to keep doing it every weekend, basically. So unfortunately, as much as I love the money, sometimes you have to say no and concentrate on like the core business, which obviously is the butchers, and just hope that next year, hopefully, I'm in a position where I'm a little bit freer to do some more events. I really want to explore more of the barbecue team as well, and see if we can do some more competition, because I think there's obviously it's good exposure, like, for the business as well, and it's, to be honest, it's great fun to do. And yeah, I mean, like, we were at Smoke and Fire last weekend, first comp we've ever done, and we came in 4th out of 15 teams. So, like, you can't really ask for a better start to our like comping than that. So
that's a decent, really, when you think 4th out of 15, it's sort of first good run at it. That's pretty cool, mate.
Yeah, we were really chuffed with it. It was a great result. I didn't expect to finish like that high, to be honest. I mean, there's teams there that have been like comping for years, and people that I've followed and watched what they're doing, and then to be in amongst them and to come out in that position, we were well chuffed with that.
So
we want to do more now.
I think once you get the bug, you get the bug, didn't you? I know Charlie's done a comp with some comp cooks and stuff like that. I've never cooked competitively personally, but I'd like to give it a go.
It is a whole different game. It is food you would serve to judges, but not necessarily food that you would serve to other people. It's over the top.
Yeah. This one was slightly different because it was the British Barbecue Open Championships. It wasn't like KCBS or IBQN run. So there was a lot more freedom to cook like how I like cooking, and we could get a lot more chefy with it. And so the rounds it wasn't brisket and pork shoulder, it was pork and beef and rib and chicken. So you could do anything you wanted in that realm. And then on the Saturday we had like dessert, cocktail, vegetarian, I forget what else. So there's a lot more freedom to be able to express yourself and cook like how you want to cook, rather than having to cook to a KCBS flavor profile or what the judge.
I think that's the downfall of that organization is like it's fierce competition, but it's also food nobody would want to eat. Like I get the fact you want to take away trophies and everything else, but like having eaten it and having been there and every, it's just not worth it. Like I don't get the point.
It's weird. I don't understand it. I don't understand why you
too over the top. Do you want?
Not me. I don't think we would ever enter a competition like that. I think we would only, as a team and as my business, I think I'd only ever enter one that, we could let the meat sort of be the showcase of what we're doing, really.
Right.
It sounds kind of strange though when you think if you have like a beef category, so in theory you could have like a beef burger versus a brisket, or a whole hog versus a pork chop, if you know what I mean. It's sort of kind of like two massive extremes of not really open to. I'm surprised.
It is. Initially I thought that must be impossible to judge, but then when you actually speak to the judges and they break it down, then you can judge it, because you're not necessarily comparing one dish to the other. Is the presentation there? Yes. Is the texture there? Yes. Is the flavor there? Yes. So you're just judging that one dish and you're scoring that dish for what it is, not versus something else. And then obviously at the end, the points are all collated, and whichever dish has scored the most points is then the winning dish. So initially I was like, it's impossible. You can't judge a brisket versus a tomahawk or whatever. But actually when you break it down and look at how they're judging, then it's doable. And it was nice. It was good to, like, it was a great competition. It was really nicely run. There's a great atmosphere there. And I'd love to have a crack and do it again and see if we can get even higher up the table this time.
Yeah, it sounds good. You just give me an idea. I wouldn't mind actually talking to one of the judges in that particular type of competition to find out, to get into the nuts and bolts and the dynamics of it, to find out how it all works, just from a UK barbecue perspective. I've got a fair idea how the KCBS and all of that sort of stuff works, and because I've spoken to lots of barbecue competition cooks, albeit KBSS or Texas barbecue or whatever way of cooking, but to actually get the UK judges' side of opinion, I think would be quite an interesting thing to talk about. So if you're out there, I'm coming for you.
It was run by Mark and Angie, who obviously are KTBS, but it was it was a lot more relaxed and not like strict KTBS rules. So.
Okay, so also you've run some big events, or AKA the big meet. How did that come about?
So basically it was so it started for me and a mate, Leo. We were sat in my back garden just out here, sat around a fire pit listening to music, eating barbecue, drinking beer, and thought, well, this would be quite cool to do on a bigger scale. Like, we could invite some friends and have a bigger fire pit and have some louder music and some more barbecues. And so we first started off at another type of garden centre, like it's more of a nursery. This one though, which is probably going to confuse you even more now. A garden nursery, and so we did that. We did that on just one day, just a Saturday. I think we had 3 competition teams that just came to showcase. They didn't actually compete with each other. They just came to showcase what they do. And we had maybe 2 or 3 live bands that played. And we had a really nice time. It was a great day. And then after that, we were like, okay, we need to go even bigger now. So we moved over to a farm in Farnham. And we put it on there for, I forget whether we did 2 or 3 years over there now. And it just grew bigger and bigger. And we've had a couple of years off. But hopefully I want to put something on again next year.
That'd be good if you could, just to get everyone together. Yeah, like the more people you talk to in the barbecue community, like especially in the UK, everybody just seems to want to get together and have a bit of a shindig. And because the last few years have been, to be honest, a bit shit. There's no better way to put it. So it'd be nice just to get out and have a bit of a party, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
So, mate, a possible.
I think that's what people liked about the. Yeah, I think what people liked about the Big Meat was that it was just quite relaxed, sort of family event. It wasn't, because obviously, like, I've got a young family, and so we didn't want it to be this big, like, manly barbecue festival. Like, we wanted to make it more family event. So we put on things for the kids to do and stuff as well, and face painters and pony rides and inflatables and things. So, and just to try and make it a little bit more, just like bring all the families along, and you can bring your kids to it as well. And hopefully that'll be what we look forward to doing next year in some form.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Cider said it was brilliant.
Cider liked it. Cider and Simon that were there from the start. I think they'd been to most of them, and Cider's got some great footage with his drones and stuff for us at the festival. So it'd be nice to do it again.
Yeah, certainly. I'll be down in a heartbeat when it all gets up and running. To be honest, there's been a few barbecue things over here, but I still feel a bit reluctant about going out and doing that sort of thing, at the minute. Just want it all to settle down a bit more. I don't, I know you got to get out and do stuff, but I'm not quite ready for it yet.
Yeah,
it was strange. I mean, I haven't really done much, and then going to Smoke and Fire Festival, it did feel weird. Like, from sort of not really being out all that much to suddenly being at a huge festival with thousands of people around you. It's quite strange to get used to again.
Yeah, I think the same, but I'm pretty sure hopefully we'll be back to some kind of normality next year, with any luck anyway. No, it'd be nice to get out and see people again. So, what is the most exotic meat or food you've eaten, James?
I think I had kangaroo when we were in Australia. That was quite nice.
Yes, that's cool. That's quite nice actually.
I quite like kangaroo. But yeah, I mean, so one of my, like, it's not really exotic, but something I quite like doing is ox heart pastrami, which is really nice.
That sounds amazing.
Quite unusual. It's
like
lovely. It's really nice. Ox heart in general is really nice, to be honest.
Yes. I love doing I'll do a pita bread with a tzatziki sauce and ox heart, and just lightly thin sliced, grilled over just for a couple seconds on each side. Delicious.
Yeah, that sounds good.
I find heart has such a great texture, and That is fantastic. Speaking of which, do you end up doing like so things that aren't big here would be something like sheep, lamb, cuts like that. Tongue, I think, is big over there. Aside from aside from the Mexican community and some other communities, it's not really large over here. Internal organs and offal, kidneys, that sort of thing. Do you find it be
that's really died off over the last few years?
Has it?
Like offal as a whole, I sell very little of it now. When I first took the shop like 8 years ago, I would sell quite a lot of offal. I'd sell lamb hearts and liver and kidneys, but yeah, I was very, very few people now are into offal, which is a shame because it's stunning. Like I went up to London on Wednesday and went to Borough Market, and I had a liver and bacon sandwich in Borough Market because it's great. Offal's lovely, but yeah, it's just people aren't really interested in eating it anymore for some reason.
Yeah, tongue is so expensive here. So trying to get a beef tongue, sheep tongue is impossible to get. But I can get beef tongue, but it's about $6 a pound, which I don't know what the translation is, but you guys can figure it out. It's quite pricey.
So what would you do? What would you do with a beef tongue?
Beef tongue, I'll stick it in a pressure cooker. So I'll slice it, stick it in a pressure cooker, peel off the skin, throw it in and grill it for a little while. Get a char on the outside, slice it up a little bit, throw it in with some onions, some chipoles and adobo, some other peppers, and like tomato sauce. Let it braise for like 6 hours, something like that, and then end up making tacos or something else with it.
So do you brine it or cure it first, or you just straight in the pressure cooker?
No, straight in the pressure cooker. Yeah, I don't. In the pressure cooker, I will throw in some garlic, onion, bay leaves, something like that. A little bit of salt, pepper in the pressure cooker. But the pressure cooker is basically just to get the skin off, essentially. So I use that for about an hour, and then braise it for about 6-7 hours.
Wow.
So I'd say probably 9 times out of 10 over here, it would be brined first before we do anything with it.
Yeah, I don't think unless you get the skin off, the brine isn't really going to take much effect.
Yeah.
At least in my opinion. I mean, I've heard about pickled tongue, which doesn't sound very good to me. I grew up.
Sounds a bit Silence of the Lambs.
Yeah.
Dr. Lecter have hit the job.
my mom was Scottish. My mom is Scottish, she's still alive. But she used to boil tongue, and it was basically just boiled and sliced up and serve with like maybe some onions or something like that. But yeah, I prefer like grilled and then braised. And it's delicious. Chipotle is an adobo. If you don't know them, you don't ever have them. It's basically a smoked jalapeno and an adobo sauce, which is either a Mexican or Filipino or Spanish sauce. They all have their different ways about doing it, but fantastically good. And then you throw in some bell peppers, throw in some garlic, throw in some onion and everything else, and just let it all melt together. Delicious.
That sounds really good to me. I'll definitely give that a go. 100%. I'll be all over that. As they say over, I'll be like a tramp on chips.
Well, you can also do beef tongue jerky, which is quite wild.
I still haven't made any jerky yet. Do you remember I asked you about that a little while ago? I still haven't got around to making any jerky yet. I suppose now's the time to be.
Phenomenally easy to make. Normally I use like a topper, I normally use a round because there's very little fat in a round. So top round, bottom round, eye round. What you're looking for is like essentially no fat, because the fat will go rancid once you start to like fairly quickly. So you cut it up and you marinate it for a while. And like I generally use like something like a soda, like a Dr. Pepper or whatever else you got, and some jalapenos, some soy sauce, Worcestershire, Worcester, and Worcester, salt, pepper, red pepper flakes, and just throw it in a bag, let that marinate for about at least 4 hours up to a day or so, and then either toss it on the grill or dehydrate in the oven and toss it on a grill at like 170 or so or less, and then toss it in an oven if you got the oven that goes 170 or less, or a dehydrator.
I'll probably buy a dehydrator, I think.
Couldn't be easier.
Another toy.
Could not be easier.
Yeah, I definitely want to do that. I'm going to start doing some ketoing again soon, and I think that'd be a good equivalent to for some sort of tasty snacks. So we're sort of like coming into the end of the interview now. What are your top 3 favorite albums or songs or anything like that, Jack?
Oh yeah, what you asked about. Oh God, I was supposed to prepare this answer and I completely forgot. Anything by Queen.
Right.
I love Queen. My dad used to listen to a lot of Queen. So yeah, anything by Queen. Final Cut by Pink Floyd is a great album. I remember that's one of my first real experiences of music. My dad made me sit down and listen to the Final Cut on headphones, and just there's all this stuff that goes on in the background of the music that you don't pick up on when it's coming through speakers. It's got to be through headphones. Yeah, Final Cut by Pink Floyd, anything by Queen, and I used to be really into like rock and roll and rockabilly, so yes, sort of, yeah, any sort of rockabilly album or Stray Cats, yeah, I used to love Stray Cats. There's a guy I listen to a lot at the moment that's more, it's not really rock and roll. There's a chap called Billy Strings. He's I don't know what you would classify it as, but he does a lot of guitar picking, and he's amazing.
Yeah, name sounds real familiar.
Yeah, he's a young lad, phenomenally fast at like guitar picking, and it's great to listen to, especially when you're barbecuing. So yeah, Queen, Billy Strings, and Pink Floyd. Weird combination.
I like it.
No, not really. I'd say they're quite cool, to be honest. It's good to me. Good to me. So what we're going to do now is it's sort of like we're coming into the end of the formal interview, but we do have a set of questions that you haven't seen. They're called the Hot Fire Cues. What generally happens is we'll ask you a series of questions. Just answer with the first thing that comes into your mind. I'll like it'd be flip-flopping between myself and Charlie, and at the end you've got to add a question for next week's guest. So bear that in mind while you're asking the questions.
Hey, hold on a second here. I'm supposed to flip-flop.
Yeah. So I can give you a run through of some of the questions. So the last question was that on the list that was asked by Mark from Swine Life Barbecue. It was a really cool interview. He works a lot with Malcolm Reed, and it was a really cool, interesting interview. And that was the last question you will be asked will be from Mark, and then you'll be adding to one behind Mark. So that'd be quite cool. Have you got the questions now, Charlie?
No, I do not have questions.
Oh man! All right. Well, sure. I'll
Oh,
tell
right,
you.
never mind.
So I will tell you. So this plays into the story. I was at when I was a child. Do you guys have McDonald's? I'm assuming.
Yeah.
And Burger King.
Yeah.
Do you know the Burger King?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I went to my aunt's apartment building and whatever else. There was the Burger King. He flipped the ping pong table up and was playing with 2 balls, 2 paddles by himself. And he just happened to live in the same apartment building. So, hey, Ryan, you're playing ping pong by yourself. So all the questions are yours to ask.
Okie dokie. We're getting some feedback from somewhere. Can you hear that?
I do. Sounds like a radio.
Let's do a quick mic check. Right, I'm gonna go silent. Charlie.
Hello. Sounds good from here. Let's I can check the mic. I don't know. Next time
All right.
we will share the questions because I do
Okay.
not have the questions.
So I'll be doing a quick fire round with just me and your good self then, James. You ready? Here we go for the quick fire round. So, hot and fast or low and slow?
Hot and fast.
Day or night?
Night.
Beer or spirit?
Oh, beer first, spirit later.
Good man, multitasking. So, lump or briquette?
Lump. All day.
Pork or beef? Pork or beef?
Possible to answer. Pork.
Ribs, wet or dry?
Dry.
Shrimp or meat?
Sorry, what was the first one?
Shrimp, so like seafood, prawns or whatever, or meat.
Meat, obviously.
Yeah, it couldn't have been anything else.
Yeah, surf and turf.
Yeah. Wrap it or let it
Yeah.
ride.
Let it ride.
Burgers or hot dog?
Burgers.
So horse, yay or nay? Would you eat it?
If it was bred correctly, yay.
Cool.
Good man.
Favorite non-meat thing to grill?
Shrimp.
Brisket or short ribs?
Short ribs.
Smoked or grilled?
Grilled.
Fat up or fat down?
Up.
Wood or charcoal?
Both.
The best way to light a stick burner?
I don't know. I haven't got one.
Most people say with a match. But,
It looks like it.
yeah. Sweet or savory?
Savoury.
Cool. And what do you have a question that you'd like to add to the quickfire round?
Rum or whiskey?
Good man. Rum or whiskey? I'll put that down. That'll be asked to the next guest, which will be Ben. Yeah. Okay, that's cool. I'll bung that in. Right.
The only question you missed is there is a saying that goes, beer and liquor never sicker. Liquor than beer, always clear.
We have, what do we have? Wine on, no, which way around is it? Beer on wine feel fine, wine on beer feel queer.
Mm.
All right, fair enough. And probably another question: who else would you like on the barbecue chat? Like, who would you like to see on the seat?
Ooh. Good question. Do you know what would be really interesting to speak to Simon Burt from Lunch and Munchin? He's got a really interesting story actually, how he's come into barbecue. Again, different probably to some people, maybe similar to some people like during the COVID times actually. But yeah, he's got quite his interesting story how he's come into barbecue and how he's progressed over the last couple of years. So
your idea of a different story is not a man plans multi-million-dollar pig ranch. Your idea of a different story is what exactly? Pray tell.
Falling into it, making it work by any means possible.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, that sounds good. Then I'll hit him up and see if I can get him booked up and see if he wants to come on.
Yeah, Simon's he's a critic. He's one of those guys that he deserves success. Like Marcus, that Marcus has put in so much work over the years. Marcus deserves to be an incredibly successful person, and the amount of work that Simon's put in over the last couple of years as well. He deserves some success, and it deserves to do well with what he's doing now.
Yeah, I mean, I'll agree. Like Ryan brought me in kind of last minute to interview Marcus, so I'd never met him before. That was the only time I talked to him. I really like the guy, and I only talked to him for what was it, an hour and a half or so, and I thought he was a great guy, amazing information, and I was impressed.
Yeah, he is.
He's an incredibly knowledgeable person.
Yeah,
and
but humble as well.
He's very free with that knowledge as well, and he's happy to share it.
Yeah, yeah, that was my experience as well. He seemed like down to earth, just wanted to share what he had to know, and that was it. So that was phenomenal. Yeah.
Very, very open and likable. You know, he's a good guy. I count him as a friend. I've known him for a long time, and we chat we've done similar sort of stuff. Last year, and we were chatting back with some before. He's a good guy. He's a really, really nice chap. You know, and sometimes he picks up a bit of static for probably being as successful as he is, and I think wrongly, because to get where you are, you got to put the work in. So you get out what you put in.
All right. All right. One second. I'm gonna ask one question. So I've heard a couple of things. So aside from the garden center, which I'll still have to figure out, and who knows, I don't know what the hell's going on with that. The other thing is, I have heard if you are a success in Britain, you will get people trying to tear you down because it is some sort of same thing happens here, but I've heard that from people in Britain. Is that true or not?
100%. And I think, and Marcus is, definitely, and Marcus has experienced that. I think recently, especially with like the Sainsbury's venture and stuff as well. People. It's weird. We try and push people to be successful, and then when they get there, you try and pull them back down again. It's very strange, very strange how we treat people.
All right,
Yeah.
it is true. Yeah, that's what I've heard.
I'll tell you what, Charlie. If you want an insight into that, there's a song by. Are you aware of a group called the Smiths? Yeah, the Smiths.
But very well aware.
Do you know there's a song? There's a song by the Smiths called "We Hate It When Our Friends."
Morrissey, rather.
Yeah, Morrissey. There's actually a song called "We Hate It When Our Friends Become Successful." If you listen to the lyrics in that song, that's pretty much the line of what things are in England if you get good at doing what you're doing. It's sort of like a satire look on what happens when your friends become successful. You know, they go from being your friends to, oh, look at him, he's got this, he's got that, oh, no, but they've got there. They're still your friends, but they've worked to get that, and that's what they're doing. So this has nothing to do with barbecue or anyone in particular. It's just listen to the Morrissey song or listen to the Smith song. Yeah, give you a good insight into that sort of thing if that's what you want to go and look at. Yeah, so this is that's the end of the interview with "We Hate It That Our Friends Become Successful" by the Smiths.
No, don't forget it. No, hold on. We are also sponsored by Squire's Garden Center. Go visit your local garden center as soon as you can and buy some plants and I don't know, go like roller skating and eat food. I have no idea what happens in those places.
Roller skating in a garden center would be quite something, you know. They're probably.
I'm assuming they have it. They have everything else. They might as well. One-stop shopping.
Right. So, James, if you could give us all of your social media handles and all of that good stuff, I'll be more than grateful.
Yeah, it's just JL Butchers everywhere, I think. The Instagram might be _butcher. No, that's Twitter. Yeah, it's just JL Butchers. Facebook.com/JL Butchers. Instagram.com/JL Butchers. Twitter, I don't use that much, but I think Twitter is JL_Butchers. But yeah, Instagram and Facebook. JL-Butchers.co.uk for the website.
Are you on a TikTok on YouTube?
No, I have got a YouTube channel, but there's nothing on it.
So here, pro tip for TikTok: don't look at it. Make a video like about 6 to 10 seconds or so. Put it on there, and they'll give you opportunity to add some crazy song. Add it. Throw your video, and then just run from TikTok. Like, just save your life.
I'm on TikTok. I tell you what, TikTok is the place to grow. You know, I've got a YouTube channel. I've got 500 odd people following me. The production I put into my videos takes forever. You make something on TikTok that takes 10 seconds. Boom! There you go. You got 1,000 followers already. Zero production, zero thought. Bang! There you go. Have them, and then it just keeps on going. You just think
it's for those with ADD who have an attention span of a gnat, and but it works. You can throw stuff up there and just run. People will watch it.
They do. Yeah. Again, thanks so much for coming on, Joe. I know it's really short notice and all that, but much appreciated, James. Thank you so much for coming on the BBQ Talks Show and the podcast. I hope you've enjoyed yourself, and I'd love to have you back on as a guest again to discuss a little bit more about butchery and see how you're progressing along with your project and stuff like that, and future festivals, etc. So it'd be great to have you back on and good for another chat. Maybe I'll tell you what could be an interesting show if we could marry you up with an American butcher and get you to have sort of like a UK American butcher type chat.
I'm
cool. Sure that might be a good idea. I'm sure we'll probably be able to line someone up with that. What do you reckon, Charlie?
It's hard to say. I do recommend checking out the Bearded Butchers. I think you'll like that. Like they do some.
Yeah, take a look at them. Yeah.
It's actually pretty fascinating. They definitely go through like you're talking like half an hour to an hour long video. But it's and their ginormous channel, strangely enough. But it was good having you on. We'll try to figure somebody out. I'm not sure. I don't know. I'm not sure. Who knows? I may be able to reach out to somebody.
I've got someone in mind, but they make rubs as well. I don't know how much sort of. Steve's got a pretty good link to him.
All right. That sounds fun. And I do love and respect a good butcher for sure.
You've always got to trust your butcher, that's for sure.
Otherwise, look out. Otherwise, look out. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So thanks again, mate. It's much appreciated. I'm going to run a little ad now.
No worries.
For the pub club. If you want to stick around and have a chat with people in the chat, you're more than welcome to stick around. If you want to head off and sort of prepare for tomorrow, don't feel under any obligation you need to. But yeah, I'm going to run that and stay if you want. Go if you don't. But thanks for coming on.
Cool.
It's so much appreciated, mate. All right. Right. See you on the other
worries.
side.
Thank you for me.
Bye.
Cheers.
Good to meet you.
Yeah, you too.